Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to today's Crypto Blast. It is Tuesday, the 20th of May, all day. Myself, and the awesome Cam O'Connor from Institutional Fi will be giving you a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in crypto markets. But before he does, I will get the legals out the way. So, as usual, nothing discussed on this space and session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, Institutional Fi, myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed Cam O'Connor. Cam, how the devil are you? Oh, he's just dropped off. One sec, I will add him again. One sec. Dum dum dum. I'm hoping he's got a lot to talk about because he did send me the bullet points for today's show very early. So that's normally a good sign. I have sent him the invite. He might have to drop off and come back again. Serves me right for starting the show before he actually confirmed that he was on there. Dum dum dum. Where is he? I can see him there, but he's not accepting the invite. Oh, there you are.
Spaces if there wasn't a technical difficulty with it, would it?
No, exactly that, mate. Exactly that. How are you? Good weekend?
Yeah, doing well, thank you very much. Enjoying the sunshine. It was quite a nice weekend. What about yourself?
Yeah, busy, mate. Busy. The life and times of a self-employed business owner. There is no weekends. But anyway, go on, talk to me. What's been occurring?
Yeah, let's jump into it. So we'll start off with Bitcoin and then Ethereum, jump into some alts, and then we'll recap over the news over the last, let's say, the weekend to today as well. Since we didn't do a crypto blast yesterday, and that is my apologies to everybody.
It's
So
a synthetic Monday for everyone, really.
yeah, synthetic Monday. I like that.
I prefer synthetic Fridays on a Thursday, but yeah, we'll take this one.
Could we just do actual Fridays every day while we're at
Yeah, right. Fuck it, let's do Saturdays every day. Fuck it. But no, sorry,
it?
moving on. Right, come on, get on with the show.
Right, let's jump into it. Bitcoin is currently trading around $105,000 after a choppy start to the day of trading yesterday. BTC wicked down to exactly $102,000 at around 8 a.m. Eastern Standard ahead of the US session. But demand for Bitcoin was quite high as BTC managed to rally 5% after the open. For the most part, Bitcoin looks constructive here, printing a series of higher highs and higher lows. Bitcoin spot ETF products also saw interest, with the ETPs bringing in over $667 million in net flows yesterday. Looking over to Ethereum, ETH ran over 8% from the lows to highs yesterday, closing higher than the previous day's close, with the current price of Ether trading at around $2,512. Just shy of a 1% change from the close of yesterday. Ethereum remains constructive here too, just following that trend that BTC is setting itself. If we move down the market cap list, not in any particular order, Solana is trading at $166, XRP at $2.33, and BNB is trading at $643. Looking deeper into the macro altcoin sector as a whole, Total 3 shows us that around $22 billion has left the digital asset space from the start of today's candle. And is this outside of the normal range? Well, we can answer that right now. No, we often see between $22 billion and $40 billion enter and exit on a daily basis. So, this macro overview just gives us some light that alts are seeing more selling than buying as we enter today's trading session. So there we go. That was the market roundup. Let's jump into the news that's happened. This actually, like you said, I did catch the intro whilst it wasn't letting me accept the co-host. Well, there is quite a lot of news to talk about. So we'll start off with one of the key stories that we've touched on a few times over the last couple of weeks. Circle, the issuer of USDC stablecoin, is reportedly engaged in informal acquisition talks with Coinbase and Ripple, while still pursuing their $5 billion billion-dollar IPO filed in April of this year. And this is according to the news outlet Fortune. Sources indicate Circle is seeking at least around a $5 billion valuation through either a sale or public offering. Coinbase is seen as the more likely buyer due to its deep ties with Circle, including their 2018 joint venture, the Center Cortizium, which launched USDC. Although the Cortizium dissolved in 2023, Coinbase retains an equity stake in Circle and favorable revenue sharing terms, including 100% of USDC interest revenue on its platform. Insiders suggest Circle would sell in a heartbeat. That is quote in there, if Coinbase made a serious offer, with one source describing the companies as practically one. So showing the harmony between Circle and Coinbase. Coinbase's $8 billion cash reserve and public market access further strengthens its position. Ripple previously offered, rumored, around $4 to $5 billion, partly in XRP, but Circle rejected it as being too low. Ripple's $11.8 billion in liquid XRP and $95.7 billion in escrow could fund a deal. Got to keep that in mind. But its offer was less appealing due to the token-based structure and Circle's preference for Coinbase's financial stability. Despite rumors of a $20 billion bid, experts dismiss this as inflated. Ripple's motivations are unclear, especially as it develops its own RLUSD stablecoin. Coinbase officially denies being for sale, emphasizing its IPO focus, but no roadshow for pricing has been announced, leaving room for potential acquisition. The talks remain early stages with no formal offers, and the situation is described as fluid, evolving week by week. As we go through this story, as it develops, more and more of it just goes, well, actually, we can't confirm any of this. I want to keep I want to keep to myself. So
this is it.
yeah.
This seems, and you don't blame them. They want to keep as much optionality open to them as possible, right?
Absolutely, and paving the if market sentiment is actually Circle is up for sale, and they would entertain, maybe it does bring in the eyes of more a favourable bid, especially if they don't quite come to that number, but they obviously can see that a number's been rejected. So piquing investor interest, I'm sure.
I see what you did there.
Definitely a nothing burger, but isn't quite a nothing burger. This next story. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon confirmed at the bank's annual investor day that clients will soon be able to buy Bitcoin directly through the bank. However, he emphasized that JP Morgan will not offer custody services for Bitcoin, meaning the bank won't hold or manage the cryptocurrency on behalf of clients. Diamond, a long-time Bitcoin skeptic, as we all know, reiterated his personal reservations, citing concerns about its use in illicit activities like money laundering and sex trafficking, but acknowledged client demand for access to the asset. This move aligns with a broader trend of institutional adoption amid improved regulatory outlook for cryptocurrencies. I've got just a little bone to pick with this statement.
Go on.
So he said, I've got concerns because Bitcoin is used for, money laundering and, sex trafficking. But then he acknowledged that his investors want access to it. So are you saying,
are you saying
your clientele?
Now you word it like that, I can see, interesting one.
Why did he word it that way? Why did he? Anyway, we like to have a little bit of fun here. As I'm sure everybody heard the legals. Yeah, I know. Moving on. As everybody heard the legals, nothing that we say is investment advice. It is, a bunch of entertainment. There we go. Moving on. The US Department of Justice, we call it the DOJ, is investigating a data breach at Coinbase Global Incorporated. We talked about this last week in quite a bit of detail. I believe on Friday. So the largest US cryptocurrency exchange where criminals bribed employees and contractors in India to steal customer information. The breach, disclosed by Coinbase on May the 15th, involved rogue overseas. I've lost my place here. I was just reading my notes.
So like the kind of like the data entry people basically have gone rogue.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. So the bits of data that they had access to were names, addresses, emails, masked bank account numbers, so not numbers in whole, partial social security numbers. We don't have to worry about that because they were hacked last year anyway, apparently for months.
Yeah, don't worry about that. They've already got that info. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, they've already got these social security numbers. That's part of the parcel. Government ID images and account balances for less than 1% of Coinbase's monthly transacting users. And I
This,
probably should have brought that number up.
yeah. So this is quite, yeah. When you consider the information they've got, this is quite major. Um,
Mm,
did you say it had their addresses as well, right? As in
yes.
their home addresses. Now, if you are, it doesn't matter if you're one of the 1%. If you got any serious amount of crypto on Coinbase, you have now got to be looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Um, because we're seeing a rise already of people getting attempted kidnapping, extortion, stuff like this. Now, if you've got serious pot on Coinbase, you're potentially you're now in harm's way. Um, so yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how this develops because my impression is, especially at this moment in time when everyone's trying to prove how legit these bigger names can be. If this was a bank, for instance, giving away this traditional bank that given away this much information, they'd be taken to the cleaners. So it's interesting. Yeah, I know Trump administration very much crypto friendly. It'd be interesting to see just how friendly they are because, in my opinion, this is quite a significant story, and I don't think it's getting anywhere near the traction that it should do when you consider the data that's been lost.
Yeah, yeah, it's. I'm not saying it's being buried by the media, um, but yeah, again, that it's not gaining as much traction, like you say, as you'd expect it to be. And I don't even think, even if you have a serious pot, you're being targeted. With the scammers globally
Oh
that
yeah,
contact you and send you emails on a daily basis, they're not. They'll do anything for a couple hundred quid.
yeah, yeah. No, true. No,
Um,
exactly. That.
so yeah, it's quite concerning. Obviously you'll have a lot of people going, well, they shouldn't be keeping their money on the exchanges,
Yeah.
keep it in a cold wallet. And well, maybe here's
Well,
the
no,
reason.
yeah.
Here's the
In
lesson.
yeah, you're right, and they should be, but at the same time, a company that's just IPO'd, that's meant to be, the whiter than white crypto exchange, yeah, this is just not a very good look. And and anyone that's just listening for the first time, don't think we are all doom and gloom because we've been really positive about the the recent kind of stablecoin moves, with the big names in credit cards and whatnot, and saying the adoption is key, removing that fear. But it does feel like one step forward, two steps back because anyone that's has no real understanding of crypto, they're like, oh great, I can now use it, via Meta on the Facebook Marketplace, or I can now use it via Mastercard, Visa, etc. It removes that fear. But then you take one look to the left and you see that everyone it feels like everyone that's been on Coinbase is potentially at risk. It's just not a good look.
I feel like maybe if they know that the 1% are, if they know who the 1% are, and they can clarify that these are the identities and
Yeah,
stuff that have been
but
leaked,
that's the
they
problem
should be
then.
contacted.
How do you do that without revealing their names anyway? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't, as Coinbase, you can't exactly print out a list of names that are impacted.
No, but you could send. I mean, there are ways of doing it. Whether you just go onto their accounts and set up a little toast notification to them that
Oh
they
yeah,
have
no,
to
as in telling the
physically
individuals
engage with.
themselves. Telling the individuals
Yeah,
themselves, yeah, that's something they need to be doing. They need, if you're in, if you are involved in this, you need to be told like yesterday. But they just can't
100%.
make that list public, or else they're just
Yeah, of
they're just
course.
doing the worst thing ever. Yeah.
And can we trust that 1% figure? I don't want. Yeah, there's so many
This is it, right?
things
Yeah.
to go down, and as well as the SEC investigating them for the 2021 claims of active users anyway. So
Well,
can we
maybe, yeah,
trust that one
maybe
percent
this
number?
1%, maybe this 1% have been done. If they're all fake accounts anyway.
Maybe, yeah, maybe that's the you make a really good point there. Um, you make a really good point. So it would just clarify that obviously Coinbase have said that no password, private keys, or funds were compromised, and Coinbase Prime accounts remain unaffected. So if you've got a Coinbase Prime account, you don't have to worry about this at all. The attackers, they demanded around $20 million as a ransom, which Coinbase didn't pay. And in fact, as we discussed on Friday's Crypto Blast, the CEO, Brian Armstrong, came out in a video and a public statement to say, look, we're not going to do it. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, oi, mate.
Yeah, oi, mate, I'm going to get you.
Who the fuck do you think
I
you
don't know
are?
who you are, but I'm going to get you.
But yeah, didn't he say, well, okay, I'll do a 20 million bounty on anyone that digs you out, kind of thing?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So if you want
Yeah,
a 20 million quid,
what's that mean? Yeah, it's like it's a brave move. It's a brave move, Con, to see how it plays out for him. But yeah.
yeah. Interestingly, Coinbase reckon that this is going to have anywhere between $180 million to around $400 million to take to resolve the issue. The DOJ's criminal division in Washington is also examining the circumstances of the breach, focusing on the actions of the bribed contractors who have been fired. No surprise that they've reported that. Coinbase reported the incident to law enforcement in cooperation with the DOJ and international agencies, and has committed to reimbursing affected customers who lost funds due to the related social engineering attack. But they said that funds were untouched. That was the other thing I was going to point out.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of conflict in the stories that they're putting out regarding it.
Yeah, like I said, it'd be interesting to see how the SEC, well, what they come up with, bearing in mind they are the crypto-friendly SEC now, and how deep they dig. But yeah, definitely a story. I think there's I think there's plenty more legs on it.
Exactly. So let's jump over to another story. So the SEC yesterday delayed its decision on several spot Solana ETF applications, including VanEck 21 shares, Fidelity, and Bitwise. The postponement was announced yesterday as the SEC cited that they need further legal review. And I think that was kind of in line with analyst expectations to seeing a delay to these ETFs. Moving on to a different story, a class action lawsuit was filed on May 16th against Strategy Incorporated, formerly known as MicroStrategy, and its executives Michael Saylor, Fong Li, and Andrew Kang in the US District Court of the Eastern District of Virginia. The plaintiff represents investors who purchased Strategy securities between April 30th of 2024 and April 4th of this year. The lawsuit alleges violations of sections 10B and 20A of the Securities and Exchange Act, claiming the company and executives made false or misleading statements about the profitability and the risk of Bitcoin-focused investment strategy. Specifically, the suit argues that Strategy misrepresented the profitability of Bitcoin's treasury operations and exaggerated returns and downplayed Bitcoin's volatility and associated risks. Bone to pick with this one, because all Saylor goes on about is how they're exploiting volatility in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So they basically go on to say that they were in breach of fair value reporting.
So where do you think this will go? Do you think as well that this potentially is only coming up because now there's better alternatives than the MicroStrategy or strategy, whatever we're calling it today?
I think so.
Like it almost feels like the people that have gone in on MicroStrategy, again, this is complete circumstance and just me sticking a finger in the air. But to me, it does feel a little bit like people that are long and wrong in MicroStrategy are now seeing the alternatives that are available, such as 21 Capital and whatnot, and going, shit, we should have waited. That's a far better fit for what we need. That's also kind of what MicroStrategy were promising, but they're not delivering on. Therefore, we'll see if we can take MicroStrategy so the cleaners get our money back, get a bit extra, and then stick that back into 21 Capital. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, I'm just having a look. It's they had was it 2 days of trading where it like absolutely stormed in price to around $544 for the stock price. The MSTR, right? Yeah, MSTR. MSTR now sits around 413 to close the play yesterday. So that's 31% from the highs. It's not down terribly. So yeah, it obviously had a massive rally from below 240
But
and
this is it,
beginning of
right?
April, but yeah,
Yeah, the fact that it's like 30 odd percent off the highs, whereas Bitcoin's like at the highs,
yeah,
shows you that there is there is a
yeah.
gap
So
there.
they're that yeah. So they're trying to
There's a bit
exploit.
of spread. Yeah, and that's what people are getting a moan on about, right? They're, anyone that's bought above here in micro strategy, and then they're looking at the price of Bitcoin, they're like, well, hang on, if anything, I should be scratching the trade. Whereas they might be 20-30% offside.
Hmm.
But again, that's the downside of trying to get involved into Bitcoin via a stock, because if you're buying the stock, it's gone bid, 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 bid. It's no longer now a direct relation to the price of Bitcoin. Basically, it's only going to be a true representation. Even then, it's not really going to be a true representation, but you basically need quiet days in the stock market for it to be balanced to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and also it's not entirely backed by BTC, is it?
Well, no,
25% of
exactly.
the
This is
business
what,
is a software company, and who knows what
but do you
lasts
see
in
what
it.
I mean? Like, say someone comes in and say, "All right, I want to do 2 yards of fucking micro strategy." It's not like they turn around and buy Bitcoin at the same time. MicroStrategy don't
Hmm.
turn around, so you're never going to get the two syncing up like that. This is what I mean. It's a very weird one to play. You almost want kind of set kind of rebalancing. If you knew like when MicroStrategy were going to rebalance, then it'd be a bit of a fairer game. But yeah, you're always going to get these like these spreads widening out between the two. If it's a case of Sailor kind of rebalances whenever he feels like dipping his toe in. It's just like I said, as we know, anyone that's been listening to the show for the last few weeks, I'm not a big fan of how this is set up, and I do think it's going to unravel. And it feels like to me it's already unraveling, especially when you look at the alternatives that are out there for anyone that wants to, in a regulated fashion, get Bitcoin on the balance sheet.
Yeah, like 100% backed Bitcoin to your
Yeah,
balance sheet. Yeah,
yeah, no,
absolutely.
exactly.
And further on to that, despite the legal action, Strategy announced yesterday that they had acquired over $764 million of Bitcoin from last week, averaging around, I had the average, but it was around $102,000 per BTC. So yeah, they're still buying quite a heavy load of Bitcoin at the moment. They seem unfazed by the legal action taken against them. Just a few more news stories of note. Crypto.com announces a partnership with Canary Capital to establish Canary CRO, which is the native currency to Crypto.com trust for US investors. Dubai's regulatory authority, VARA, sets deadline to June 19th for the VASP to comply with new crypto rules, and the New York's Federal Reserve Bank and Bank for International Settlements are testing smart contracts for tokenized monetary policy, which is really interesting. I want to dig into that a little bit more and come into to the Crypto Blast and give us some more lowdown on that stock, because that is really interesting. Again, expanding out of the worlds of just Bitcoin and blockchain. Well, what are these real world use cases to fit in, blend that traditional financial structures
Yeah,
with the digital age?
yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, that is going to be it from me today.
Awesome. Cam, thank you so much as always for giving us the lowdown. Listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. Yeah, whatever you're doing, keep it tight, stay safe, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Much love.
See you then.